Hello people, welcome. My name is V and today we'll be looking at my new smart Shulker box loader. This machine has been specifically designed to be used with the Shulker box storage system, but it can also be used in many other applications. So I'm going to give you an overview on how this works. I'm going to give you an explanation of the logics behind this, and I'm going to show you how to build it and integrate it in a Shulker box storage system. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, first off I'm going to give you a brief explanation on how to operate this machine. Most of this will go automatic once it's integrated in a full system, but for now I'm going to give you a quick overview on how this works. So this hopper line is going to be your Shulker box input. This is where you'll put in the Shulker boxes that are going to be loaded. Up here we have our item input. For now I'm going to use a chest here. I'll get back to how to actually input items into the machine later, but for now the chest will work. So these two hoppers right here will suck the items out of this chest and then distribute it to the Shulker box that's going to be loaded right here. And finally we have the output, so this is where all the loaded Shulker boxes are going to end up. So first off we're going to add some items to the system. As you can see, it will pull out 2 items at a time because there's 2 hoppers underneath it. One of them is going to stay in here and the rest will be in these hoppers up here. Alright, so now we will have our Shulker boxes loaded. So each one of these Shulker boxes has one open slot, which means that after one of these stacks is loaded into the Shulker box, it should break it and place the next one to be loaded. Because this is a smart loader and it will detect whether a Shulker box is full, not only for Shulker boxes that are loaded with one type of item, which most of the Shulker box loaders that I've found so far do. They check with a comparator to see if the Shulker box is completely full. This one also checks if there's no more space left for the next type of item that you want to put in. So if a Shulker box is full of stone and there's still place left for stone to go, but you want to load oak logs, it will just go to the next Shulker box. So yeah, let's show you. So as you can see, it noticed that there is space in here and it will start loading these oak logs. It's a little slower than a normal hopper, each one of these, because it keeps locking the hopper every time an item passes through it. That's why I have 2 hopper chains, which negates the slowdown a bit, and it's about as fast as a normal hopper now. And as you can see, one of them was full and the next one will be loaded now. And this one should have a full stack of oak logs, just like that. And after this one is loaded and there's no more items left, not only will these be placed and broken and sent over here, but this hopper underneath will also unlock, which will let all these Shulker boxes through to this chest. So if there's no items waiting in here, it will just pass all the boxes through this dispenser down into the collection chest. That way there won't be any Shulker boxes waiting here when there's no items to be loaded. So yeah, that was a quick overview on how this machine works, and I'm going to give you an overview of how the logic works now. If you want to skip to the actual building of the machine, I'll have a timestamp on the screen right now. Alright, so I wanted to talk about the logics because I think it's pretty interesting, and I hope that there's some people that also find it interesting. If you don't find it interesting, just skip ahead to the actual building. But this thing was pretty tricky to figure out, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So let's get right into it. The most basic part of this machine is detecting if there are Shulker boxes in the dispenser. That's done by this comparator right here, which will send a pulse to this repeater. Goes down here. there's a repeater right back there, and it sends a pulse up here, or not really a pulse, a solid signal. And because this is on subtract, it will just keep looping the signal. And this will be picked up by this node block right here, which will then be sent up this observer chain into this block. And this block is right over top the piston, and there is another observer right here which detects if there's power on this hopper, which this piece of redstone dust provides. So every time this makes a loop, this node block is updated and this piston breaks, and this observer makes the dispenser place the shulker box. So that's the most basic part. Now I wanted to make sure that any shulker boxes will be let through if there's no items waiting. So I did that with this line of repeaters and this comparator right here. So when there's items waiting, there should be an item right in here, which will make these all turn on, and this hopper will be powered, which means that the shulker boxes in here won't go down. And this is actually pretty interesting because this hopper will be pulsing, or rather this comparator will be pulsing when items are flowing, but I still want this hopper to be locked. So I had to invent kind of a, well, I didn't really invent it. I'm sure someone else already came up with it, but I came up with it by myself. So when there's a shulker box right here, oh, that's gonna break it. Yep. While there's a shulker box right there, items will be passing through it. Let's see if I can make that happen. Let's just stick some items in there. Alright, that should do it. Okay, so as you can see, this is pulsing because the item keeps passing through it, and then this repeater locks the hopper. And as you can see, at the pace that it is pulsing, this 4-tick repeater will never turn off, which means that while there's an item in here stationary, this is powered, and while it is flowing, it's still powered, which locks the hopper when I want it to be locked, and once there's no more items, it will unlock it. So that was the first hurdle that I had to take. This wasn't the biggest issue. I had other ways to do this, but the next one is where it gets complicated. So on the other side we have another comparator, and this one does the same thing as over here. So while items are passing through it, this will be pulsing, and I wanted to make sure that while it is pulsing, which means that there's space in the shulker box, this clock won't be placing and breaking the shulker boxes. But I do want it to place and break while there's items waiting in here, but they're stationary. So unlike over here, where we want it to always be powered while there's items in here and when it's flowing, we only want it to be powered while it's flowing over here. So I did that with this over here. So I have an observer looking at this comparator, and then have a repeater on 2 ticks and one on 3 ticks. And this only activates while this is changing. So if there's an item stuck in here, let's show you right now, and this stops updating. So it's just stationary, which means there's no power going through these repeaters. But while it is flowing, as I'll demonstrate right now, let's do the same thing as before. Now it's flowing, and as you can see, the same thing is happening as down there, except with 2 ticks and 3 ticks, because this observer is sending a pulse every time this updates. So it goes on, off, on, off, on, off, and this one is sending that signal into this 3-tick repeater, which keeps it on at all times. But when it stops, it retracts this piston and it will allow the looping comparator right here to place and break the shulker box again. And yeah, that's the basics of how this machine works. So I hope that was helpful or interesting. In any case, I'm just gonna move on to how to actually build this. Okay, so the items in my hotbar right now are the items that you'll need to just build this. And these are the extra items that you'll need if you are going to install it on the shulker box storage system. And before we actually start building, we need to make a couple adjustments to this. So we're gonna move this line slightly. And we are going to go over here and we're gonna make a turn like that. Then we go into a double chest and then we have a dispenser right there and some hoppers just like that. And over here we'll have one more dropper going up into a double chest just like that, and that should work. So let's move on. Alright, so to start off we're gonna go down here. We're gonna have an observer looking at this hopper right here, into a block, then a note block, and I now realize I forgot to add the piston to the items that you'll need. The piston is gonna go right there. Go up 2 with the observers into a block, then a piece of redstone dust. And then we'll have 2 stacks of hoppers going up just like that. One of them is going to be facing away like this, and we will have a hopper facing into that, and another hopper, and this one will be facing away like that. And then we'll have an observer looking at the middle one downwards like that. Now we'll have a comparator like that. Redstone, I'll do the same thing on the other side. Comparator, piece of redstone dust, block, and then have 2 repeaters just like that. Then in the middle here we'll have a slab. Actually, this needs to be on top of a slab as well. I just realized. Okay. And we'll have a repeater like that. 2 blocks. And a repeater on 4 ticks. Block right there. Piece of redstone dust. And that is done. And now we'll do a comparator clock right here. So comparator going out of this dispenser into a block, and we will have, actually I made an adjustment here, so normally you'd have 2 repeaters like this. You don't have to follow this right now, we're gonna do the correct way in a second. Then we go down like this and we'll have a block right there, repeater into a block, and then have redstone like that. That's the normal way to do it. But because this gets cut off, we could mitigate that with a slab, but there's also a repeater pointing into this block right here, which will also be picked up by this piece of redstone, and you would be hearing the normal shulker box placing and breaking mechanism of the machine every time this one fires, so we don't want that. So instead we are going to make a little adjustment just for this machine. So if you're normally making this part, you do it the way we just did, and for this machine we're gonna go in this direction. Actually this block we want to be the same color as the machine, because you will be seeing this block from inside. Then piece of redstone dust, 2 repeaters, both on 4 ticks, into a block, then a piece of redstone dust, and a normal repeater just like that. And let's see, and then we will have a comparator coming out of this hopper right here, observer looking up into a block, and a repeater on 2 ticks, and a repeater on 3 ticks, a sticky piston, and a slime block. Gonna be right there. Oh, actually, nope. I messed that up. There needs to be a sticky piston like that, and then a slime block. There we go. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so that is the bulk of the machine, and now we are going to connect it to the item intake. And also real quick, set this to subtract and have a hopper facing into this chest right here. Okay, so for the item intake, we're going to make a hole in the ceiling right here, just above the chests. Then have a tube running up like that. And we're going to encase this in some blocks, so none of the shulker boxes can pop out of there. And just put some glass or whatever solid block. You can also just use regular blocks. But I like to see in there to see what's going on. And then we'll have some hoppers running like that. So we have 6 go into this stack and 6 go into that stack. And that way it's evenly distributed. And next we have a bit of a tricky part, so pay close attention. I'm gonna have a hopper minecart sitting right there. Break the rails, that's very important. Then I have a piston facing in that direction. Push the fence just like that. And do the same thing on this side. There we go. You can break that block, fill that in. And because there's a minecart right there, you cannot place a block there, so we're going to push it from the top. And same goes for the middle block, which we'll do in a second. Actually, let's do it right now. And the middle block is going to be a slab. There we go. And just push it down just like that. And finally, we are going to put some water in here. So be careful with this. Water can be devastating to redstone, as you may know. So we have a trapdoor right there to make sure nothing can come out of there. And then just fill it in one source block at a time. Make sure make sure that you fill in all the blocks there. So there's no place where there isn't a source block. Otherwise it might push your item back down. And also right click this slab so that gets waterlogged and the stack of water goes all the way to the top. You can also just have a source block right there and stick a normal block on top if you have the space for it. But there we go, that should be finished. I am going to give a brief explanation on how to add your items to the shulker loader in different ways if you want to do it in a different way than we do over here in your machine. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so before we get to that, I wanted to give you a demonstration on how you actually add the items to your shulker boxes then with this machine. So I just open the trapdoor and you throw your items upwards like that. It will be picked up by the hopper and distributed equally over these 2 stacks. So there should be 1 item in each of these and it should build up on top of there. And there we go, 31 and 31. And now if you want to start loading the shulker boxes, you're going to want to do a search. That way the shulker box will go up eventually and through the loader. If you want to make sure that you have as many shulker boxes going through the loader as possible, just search for an item that you don't have a lot of. I know there's no redstone torches in here, so let's do that. In the end it doesn't really matter, but you'll have to press this button every time one of the boxes that you found comes by. So you'll see it will start loading, and once it's done loading it will just let through all of the extra shulker boxes. There's some holding area here. Let's see if it's... yeah, there's some stuck in there waiting to be loaded if there's more items to be loaded, but it should be done in a second. Also, I do recommend setting it in full search mode. So normally you'd have it in this mode, so it stops when it first finds the first box. If you have it in full search mode, it will go through every single one of these. That way you have as many shulker boxes as possible to load. So yeah, that's how to use this, and I will give you a little demonstration on how to load your items into this machine in different ways right now. So because this loader uses two hopper stacks that both feed the items into the shulker box, we need to get a little creative with how we feed the items into it. So before, at the start of the video, I showed you how to do it with a chest. That's pretty simple, just sitting over top these two hoppers that both start to load the chest. But there are different ways to do this. So instead of directly putting your items into this chest, you could also have something like this. So you have two hoppers like that, and a minecart that picks up your items in a chest down here. By the way, this is an older version. As you can see, it's a bit bigger than the newer one. But yeah, so you put your items in here. Let's give a little demonstration. It all goes into this hopper minecart, which goes up. And this is kind of a fun little thing I designed. So while it is loading, there's always an item in here. And it sends all these items equally to this chest, which will then go down like that. And as you can see, this block will get pushed forward so that the hopper goes onto this rail and will be sent back to its normal sitting position. You could also use a very fast hopper or dropper elevator to pump your items into this chest fast enough so that it can be distributed between these two hoppers. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You'll just have to find a dropper elevator that's fast enough. And finally, I have actually something very fun to show you. So I recently found a very strange hopper mechanic. So if you have a stack of hoppers like this, you would think if you put your items in here, it would just go at normal hopper speed. But because this one is sitting on top of this one and it's pointing towards it, it not only will be putting the items into the one below it, also the one below it will try to take items from the top one, which will make the hopper chain go twice as fast, as you'll see right now. It's going with 2 items at a time, and it comes in at twice the speed, which is kind of interesting. So I've been experimenting with that, and you can actually split it back up. You just have to do something like this. So you get the top one, which goes at twice the speed, and it goes to this one, and while this one is sending items to the side, the bottom one is also pulling items from it, so it will be split into 2 different stacks, as you'll see right now. It's going at about equal the speed. There's one more hopper over there, which means this one is a little bit slower, but it should end up being almost identical. So that's another way to do this. So yeah, that's about all I have to say, I think. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want more ways to add your items to the loader, I'll be happy to make another tutorial video if I find any more ways. And other than that, I hope to see you next time. Have a good day.